the fact that Elon Musk is promoting the movie. He's he put the movie on X, made it available for free to people. He pushed the followers who agree with this character. So that alone says that there's some heroic appeal to this person. I think, unless you're like me, there are a lot more people out there who are using this person to justify and validate their fear and their ignorance about migrants, their racism that they have. Do you not think that this is harmful? Everyone, my guest today is somebody that you surely have heard of lately, I'm sure. Very positive you heard of Mr. Uwe Boll right here, director of many films. However, his latest film, Citizen Vigilante, is so controversial that it's been banned in Germany, and it follows a rich American played by Armie Hammer who takes justice into his own hands against violent migrants who are terrorizing Europe. Elon Musk has promoted the film on X, and some people see it as a film that boldly addresses a problem that needs to be discussed. Other people, and I'll admit it's myself included, see it perhaps as a dangerous piece of propaganda. But I'm so glad that you're here today. This is going to be an interesting thing for me because I usually bring on people to interview. With you, I hope that we have a civil discussion about this film. And I'm going to go ahead and just get things started out by telling people some other things about yourself. You're a very accomplished person. You are a trained fighter, and you have a restaurant or a number of restaurants.
Not anymore. We closed at COVID times and then moved from Vancouver to Germany. So, but I had a German high-end restaurant in Vancouver with a Michelin star chef from Berlin because I missed German food so much. So I had to bring it up, Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Do you want to get back into the restaurant business?
No, it's way worse as the film business.
Okay, so you're sticking to films.
The restaurant business is the disadvantage that it never stops, right? It's 7 days a week on, and you make a movie. You can develop a movie, and then you shoot the movie, and then you do post-production, and then you release the movie. So you have a lot of times in between where it's not like super, like during the shoot, you're under stress and you do like 14 hours a day.
Yeah.
But then in post-production, you can kind of slow down, and take a little time. That's not so hard as the restaurant business where you have to be like on it, So in a way, I was happy that in retrospective also, because the first week of COVID, we shut down. And then I felt like, that will not be a fast shutdown. That will be a year or 2 years where restaurants not even allowed to open.
Yeah.
And so we sold it. The lease was canceled. We sold all the equipment and packed it in.
So you, even with all the controversy and all the people who criticize your movies or whatever, you'd still rather do movies instead of going back into the restaurant business.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
I mean, I did from 2016, I did Rampage 3, and then I never made a movie till basically 2022. So, and I started missing making movies. It was really like, I really felt the urge to tell more stories, to make more movies. And that is why I did the New York cop movie, First Shift, what was a big hit on Paramount Plus. We did 2 more First Shift movies where right now, during we were talking, I got the hopefully final cut of First Shift 3. So, that is a thing close to my heart. I love this kind of cop movies. I love New York City too. It's like the city for this kind of stuff. And then I did Run with Amanda Plummer, Ulrich Thompson, Barker Dapti, where I showed the refugees coming in Italian islands, and I showed individual characters what happens when the boat comes in. They're getting out of the boat, they start running, few people get arrested, other people get away, and it follows them. through the journey, and I wanted to show. So I tell everybody, before you watch Citizen Vigilante, you should watch Run. Because Run shows that I don't hate migrants, and I have a lot of migrant friends. I have Muslim friends, and so on. And that's also why I think it's good to show something like this first. But Citizen Vigilante is just then the dark, brutal brother. This kind of like now all bets are off movie where it goes to the jugular. So I think everybody has to see that a little into this connection with the Run movie too.
And you know what? That's why I brought up this image for Run, because I think a lot of people, if they know your work, they are looking at this and they're wondering, well, you did this movie where you tried to show all sides and different characters with this issue of migrants. And then you go and make this movie, which people see as very anti-migrant, and also would probably even say that it's racist, which I will get into in a little bit. Also, when you say something like, and listen, you understand what I'm saying when I mention this. When you say, well, I have Muslim friends, that also sounds like the person who's about to tell a racist joke, and then they say, hey, but some of my best friends out there are black. Hey, it's okay. You understand how that sounds, right?
Yeah, that I can imagine. But what I'm going for, or why the movie is so furious and so brutal, is that I see, living in Europe, that a lot of migrants from very Islamistic countries are not adjusting. They bring really things into the country. They're running around with knives in inner city. And there are thousands of gang rapes. It's just fact. And then the government and the courts are not really prosecuting it hard. What I want is, and I think it's also better for everybody who's a migrant who comes in, works, makes money, and feeds his family and everything. I think we need to be clearer with the rules, and we have to say, look, if you come in here, you ask for asylum, whatever, and you do crimes, we need to send you back. We cannot just like turning a blind eye and saying, oh yeah, you had a traumatic childhood in Afghanistan or Senegal or whatever, and now we are okay with it that you run around in a city and attack people or something. So that's basically, I think, the common sense I'm looking for overall, that we have a clearer structure. And look, I live in Mainz, basically, now that's actually gone, but 500 meters away from my house was an asylum camp for 10 years. And sometimes we had more Senegal, more Somalia, more Eritrea. So they came in. And basically every day I drove by, and most of the people were hanging out looking on their cell phones. So there was no integration. And that's another thing, what I think all these people who are so pro mass migration have no answer to, okay, but what are we doing now? We need language courses. We need to put them into that they start working. Working is the best integration. But all of this never happened. Yeah. So they basically sitting there and then looking on their cell phones. Okay. And what is this? That's bad from all sides.
Okay, you know what? What you're saying right there is a good discussion. And I think you make some good points. That's not what you're doing with this movie, though. So with this film, as I said, your character is played by Armie Hammer, and he does some horrendous things in this movie. One of the big points that people are talking about here is how he murders a Syrian family, a Muslim family, and he also in the movie, the guy is psychotic. I don't know how you see this person. I'm going to ask you about that, but the guy is, at least that's the way I see him. To prove a simple point to this judge that he kidnaps, he actually runs someone off the road and murders them, an innocent person, and then continues to drive. So with everything that you're saying, you're saying some things that, again, seem like a very fair discussion. But within this movie, we're dealing with a psychotic person who is your lead person, who is pretty much a person that people see as your protagonist. I want to know, first of all, do you agree with his actions. And the character's name is Sanders. I forgot his first name, but his name is Sanders. As I say, he's a rich American. Do you agree with his actions? Do you relate to him in any way?
No.
Okay, you don't?
No. And I see that as a filmmaker, you do a fictional film, also like a dystopia, right? I mean, Clockwork Orange was also not really nice to watch what happened there in the society. And I think sometimes you have to shock the people. But my choice to make him like an ice cold, not sympathetic person was on purpose. I didn't want it that everybody loves him. So, and that's something I wanted, that the audience keeps a distance to him. And I remember Army, when we cut the movie, he said, cut the car scene out, right? And I said, no, I'm not, because it shows he is more about the principle and less about the consequences. He goes for collateral damage and doesn't really care. So, I think that's the key thing why that movie is this kind of like twisted, like you kind of sometimes agree with what he says, what he's doing, but then a lot of times you think, no, that's way too much, that goes way too far, and we have to hopefully not coming into this situation. And I think we right now, you cannot you cannot judge the movie without seeing what's getting produced otherwise, right? For me, this movie is also a reaction to the film industry, where you have this kind of one harmless bullshit movie after the other, like where they go for a super good, whatever they shoot, they acting like it's super important. James Gunn is doing this and it's super important. No, it's not. It's like all these movies have nothing to do with the reality. And I made a movie what has to do exactly with the reality. Like that's a fact, like people in Europe see that things don't work with that migration. They say, why we do this, what is happening, and why we're not getting a grip on it. I wanted to like upset and at the same time, like really like push the envelope that people getting upset, that half of the people are like celebrating this and half of the people think, no, that's too much, that's racist, or that's I would not even say racist. That's more like this kind of despiting thing, nobody wants to have a guy like Sanders as his buddy. Let's say it this way. So, and that's the thing. It's a little more. The movie is a little more complicated, as a lot of people now celebrating it. Let's say it this way.
If you don't agree with this guy, and you say that he's a person that you wouldn't want to have as a buddy, you obviously disagree with his actions. I mean, you obviously think that the guy is probably, again, a little crazy. I would say that maybe that's how you feel, but I feel that you're showing him as a heroic figure. You're showing him as a savior in this movie. After he murders this whole family, or when he's about to murder them, he's scolding them about Islam. In your movie, your words that you wrote, you use Islam. These characters use Islam as an excuse for rape. They say that Islam promotes rape, and then he murders them after that. He murders the person in the car. And then the movie ends, he murders more people after that. And then the movie ends with him giving this big empowered speech about protecting the people while people are watching him like he's a hero. And at the end of the movie, it feels more like a Marvel movie. It is setting up a hero. You're setting up a sequel for this. With this movie right here, the fact that Elon Musk is promoting the movie. He's he put the movie on X, made it available for free to people. He pushed the followers who agree with this character. So that alone says that there's some heroic appeal to this person. I think, unless you're like me, there are a lot more people out there who are using this person to justify and validate their fear and their ignorance about migrants, the racism that they have. Do you not think that this is harmful? This particular movie is very one-sided and gives a very one-sided and I think dangerous view of of migrants. And I think, again, with the attacks that are happening against migrants, and I know you say that there are, there are attacks from migrants happening to innocent people out there. But do you not see how this could be dangerous, this film, especially now that it's being promoted by somebody like Elon Musk in a positive way?
So, I mean, I financed the movie myself, shot the movie, sold it in America, Quiver Distribution released the movie, and then who likes it or who makes podcasts about it or who retweets trailers. I didn't know that. That was not planned. That just happened, right? So, okay. And then, of course, you're happy when you get people flipping out and people talking about the movie and watching the movie finally. But that was not planned. I never had a movie at all what turned so viral or got this amount of response. That's 100%. But I feel also that a lot of people, I think, feel helpless. I think a lot of population, when you get in England, whatever, you insult somebody, or in Germany even also, you insult a politician and they do a house search and stuff sorry, that's ridiculous. And I feel like we have this kind of culture clash now. And for this, the movie is also a reaction to look, we can do whatever we want. We can make a movie like this. And in Germany, it's still banned. Yesterday, they gave it an 18 rating for the movie theaters. Today, they banned it for video stream and Blu-ray. It's completely absurd what's going on here in Germany. So, and the question is really why 7 people can decide what 60 million adults can watch. So, and from this point, that movie is also kind of of course, I got thousands of messages and emails, and a lot of people said, finally, somebody brings to attention the whole other side, because the media in Germany, if you watch any German movie, all the migrants are perfectly integrated, intelligent, perfectly German-speaking people. And that's just wrong. That's not the case. So it's just not the case. So, and I think if you never show the other side, that you had a lot of crimes from migrants, as I said, because also they're bored, they're hanging around, they're hanging up on the railway station. So you cannot ignore this kind of other side where migration doesn't work and where people feel unsafe. And if no movie ever brings that out, and I bring it out in a super brutal, like full in your face movie, when you say racist movie, whatever, even if it's racist, I think it's still like a hello wake up call where people have to say, yeah, there is a problem. We cannot continue like this.
Okay. I mean, so you agree with the extremists who possibly are taking this movie to, they're looking at this movie as, again, to validate their feelings and possibly to a point where it will cause them to be violent against innocent migrants out there? Do you agree with those people out there?
I'm condemning that. No, I'm condemning violence against anybody. So, but for example, when you see the thing in Belfast, what happened there, right? So you had the Novak guy is dead, and then you have the other guy on the road, and that guy wants to chop his head off. So now, what is happening then? Then the mob flips out and goes to completely innocent migrant homes and starts to attack them. And that is exactly the result out of injustice. That's not the result because they're per se totally racist and want to kill all migrants. No, it's the result of all this shit, what happened, and people don't feel appreciated. They feel like, okay, so you arrest the white guy, even if he got stabbed, and then he dies. Or I mean, that's maybe the extreme case, but there were a lot of cases in England also where people got arrested because of hate speech or whatever. They get in jail for it.
Yeah.
And I think hate speech is not so bad as actually violent crimes. So
hate speech adds to violence, though, and I mean, I can see with your movie right here, I think your movie is sending a hateful message because it's based on, first of all, it's based on misinformation. I think that you made this movie and you think that you're doing a noble thing by getting people to talk about this. You're making it brutal and putting it in front of their face. But in my opinion, you're doing something that is actually, again, putting out a lie. And also it's is rousing up people who get the wrong message from this. They are looking at this in a positive way. And, I know you don't endorse it, but you made this. You put this out there. This is your product,
Yeah.
And I think you need to accept personal responsibility for that. You can't just say I'm out there creating a conversation. You're not creating a dialogue. You're creating a very one-sided view of this issue. And if I may, may I again? I'm going to disagree with you on the issue of immigrants and crime that is related to immigrants. I think that, again, yes. Can we have a discussion about immigrants and crime and all that? Yeah, we can. We're doing it right now outside of this movie. You're telling me some points. I'm having a conversation with you. This movie is not doing that. First of all, I very much disagree with your stance on immigration and crime. And I think your movie here, it lends itself to, and again, I say this respectfully, I think your movie lends itself to propaganda. I'm going to tell you why I think that this is the case and why it's so harmful. Your movie is doing what extremists do. Your movie is taking an incident or some incidents and making it larger than what it really is, and using immigrants as a scapegoat to feed on people's fears and prejudices. And that leads to violence against them. And I think examples in your film that do that. First of all, you open the movie. And I did this in my review when I talked about this. You open the movie with it where it says Europe, as if all of Europe is being plagued by Black and brown and Islamic violence. First of all, there is study after study, and people can take studies and do what they want to with them. But there is study after study that shows that violence is not, it's not at the level that this movie tries to portray. And I know this firsthand. I go to the UK on the regular. I have an employee in Ireland. I was just in Berlin not too long ago. These places are at least from what I see, I don't live there, but I go pretty frequently. These places are not being overrun by Black and brown and Muslim violence the way you're portraying it in this movie, especially when you say all of Europe is, this is an epidemic.
You have to go, if you go in Berlin to Neukölln, you will see what they're all Lebanese, and whether you don't meet any Germans anymore. There are things not in the center of Berlin, but there are quarters of the city. Berlin is a very big city where you have really basically there are no Germans. So, and they do all the time this kind of, for example, on New Year's Eve, they basically burn down the whole quarter. So that's the thing. But I think when you dig deeper into it, of course, there are totally different layers to it. You have, for example, a lot of clans in Germany. They're really organized crime families. They're mostly also from Albania, whatever. So they are not like fresh coming in migrants. They were like for 20, 30 years. They do all the drug dealing and so on. So I talk about basically also in the movie is this kind of, and it could come from psychological problems, from they grew up in war situations, they grew up in dictatorships. So these random crimes, and we have in Europe per year 20 to 30,000 random knife stabbings. And I think that's a danger for public safety, because you don't see it coming. If you walk there and a guy comes from behind and stabs you because he's mental ill, it doesn't help you that he's mental ill. You still got stabbed. So we have this, that happens. And maybe that's because they are not getting psychological evaluated, whatever, but it happens. And these are
again, you have the crimes against, what about the attacks on synagogues? What about the attacks on innocent migrants and immigrants that are, again, victims of misinformation and ignorance and fear? Again, like I said, there are studies out there that show that this proves there's a link between immigration and increased crime. And nobody talks about the crimes that are actually good. The crimes over there are less than they are in America. You have gang rapes by people who, all white people over there, nobody talks about those things. You're talking about, this movie is very, very, very much focused on, again, just it's almost like a microscope on these crimes that by immigrants in this film that just seems to make it seem like it's a bigger issue than probably what it is. And it's playing on people's fears.
No, but as I said, there are a lot of people. There are not a lot of movies showing at all this. If you filed something to Netflix where a migrant guy is a murderer, they will not do it because they want to be so politically correct. They're not doing it. So, and that's also the movie is kind of a revolt against it to show like, no, that there has to be space even for very brutal, like one-sided movies. When you make a movie like this, you cannot, as I did in Run. In Run, I show all kinds of sides, but here not. Here, I just focus on this guy who goes for it, and he finds some, like in the bus scene, for example, he tells there are not migrants in the bus scene. He just tells them, like, if nobody pays a bus ticket, the society breaks apart. So there are other scenes in the movie too. The two drug dealers are not migrants. He just shoots them because they're drug dealers. So it's like he goes overall after crime, and when the reality is, I mean, the German statistics, a criminal statistic from like the German side of like the FBI in Germany, it shows that migrants, especially from Somali, Eritrea, Senegal, Syria, do 700% more crimes as the German population. Depending, not of course, from the percentage of there are not so many people. So it's like, of course, the German population is doing more crimes as them, but it's 700% higher. And of course, that's also the case because they don't work, they don't have work, so they turn to crime. They're hanging out on railway stations. They're getting acquired by like the Hells Angels, like in Frankfurt, the whole red light district at the railway station is in the hand of the Hells Angels. So they're using them as basically couriers, and like you get the money and blah blah blah. So that's the thing. Of course, there is more crime because they're getting into crime. But for me, the main issue here is, I think migration only works if people getting for real migration, like for real immigrating into something, and accepting also the laws in the country. And I think in my film, I just show not really religious people. I just show like criminal migrants, the rapists, right? And when the father says, I teach him the Quran, but it's kind of an empty shell in a way what he says, right? So because it's not really believable, so because he's protecting his son who raped a girl, and the sister from this guy is also like justifying it because the normal girls running around.
So that justifies killing the whole family?
No, but that's the thing. That's the reason why I made it very shocking that the audience thinks like that's too much. That he should not do. And it's kind of for me, that's kind of a dystopia in a way, like, okay, if we come to this point, then it's all over. And I don't want that. Yeah. I want security and peace and harmony, and everybody, any religion, any skin color, who worked also in all my movies, totally mixed crew, always mixed cast. So that that everybody feels good, So and I feel like we can all live together without this kind of radicalization from the left and the right.
Everything you're saying is contradicting what's going on in this movie. Again, in my humble opinion here, you're talking about you want people to be together. You don't want to show any kind of religion or person in a bad light, but that's what your movie's doing. Your movie is out. What your movie is doing, it is so one-sided that it's not looking like it's open a discussion where we are having these points of view about immigration to the point where we can actually maybe somehow come together and figure this out. No, you're pushing a narrative here where it villainizes and demonizes a group of people, and the people who want to see that are being influenced by that message. I don't think that what you're doing right now is at all giving a fair argument about immigration. I'm not so angry anymore. I mean, I am, and I'm offended by it. And to be honest with you, I think that's what you want with this movie. I think you want people to be offended and angry, and we'll talk about why in a little bit. But I don't think it's for any reason where we're going to rile up and have a discussion. It's going to bring people. They're going to get so angry. We're going to talk about this. No, it's going to influence the wrong people. And I'm going to tell you, I'm more than anything, I'm hurt by this movie, man. You want to have a discussion about immigration, fine. But with this movie, you chose the most racist approach to do it, man. You know, listen to me. I know. No, well, okay. First of all, let me answer this. But why are you laughing, though?
No, because it's like I have no chance here, right? So you just
well, okay. Yo, but I'm going to give you a chance. Let me explain this.
I wanted to say something. Let me say something from what you just said, like 2 minutes ago. I feel if I'm not the guy who makes the movie, the feel-good movie where everybody's happy, right? So, I mean, if you look at my filmography, I did a very brutal movie about Darfur, the genocide in Darfur. I did very brutal movies like A Sound on Wall Street, where they go against the bankers, 2008, after the bailout. So I did Rampage, what is a super nihilistic
you did Postal,
film, like,
you know.
I did book, but Postal, you could say also it was racist, but it was not really racist because everybody got it in Postal, right? So in Postal, we made jokes about everybody. Nobody was safe. There were a movie like Postal would never be shot again, as you can imagine today. People would say, "Oh, that is impossible. That's impossible. That's impossible," and then nothing is left. So, and I feel like, movies, take Taxi Driver. So Taxi Driver turned into a cult movie, not only because Robert De Niro was so good in it, but it was also a reaction to the Vietnam War, that people came broken back from the Vietnam War. They got basically abused by America to fight in a completely senseless war. And so and I think sometimes movies have to be very, let's say, as you say, confrontational, insulting, like where you have to start thinking about stuff, where you basically see a totally different version of something, and you should be mad about it. I'm not flipping out because your reaction was like it's a racist movie. So I'm not flipping out.
Okay,
that can actually happen, And but I think, look at what movies we're watching every day. And I mean, nothing really matters anymore. It's just like, from this point of view, I would say Citizen Vigilante is kind of a huge success because it makes people flipping out and super upset.
You think that you're doing something where you're being, I'm getting people mad. I'm getting people angry. That's fine. But you also, I'm not worried about that. You've done that a lot. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. You've done that. That's been your thing to be controversial. But I think what this movie's doing right now and what's happening around it is more harmful than anything that you've done. Sure, it's getting people mad, but right now it's at a point where I think your movie can actually be harmful to people. And let me address some points here real quick. You mentioned Taxi Driver. Taxi Driver is obviously, you brought this up, is obviously an influence for what you're doing right here. My counter argument to what you're saying about Taxi Driver is, Travis Bickle in the movie. He's not seen as a hero. Scorsese and Paul Schrader, the writer, they meant to show him as a very disturbed individual by the end of the film. Regardless of whatever he's done in the movie, he does what can be seen as a heroic action. He saves an underage prostitute girl, played by Jodie Foster. But the movie makes you. It makes clear that this is not a hero. What he's doing is not noble. He's actually a disturbed individual. And you're supposed to walk out of this movie being disturbed by Travis Bickle. Unlike your character, who is seen so much as a hero by some people that he is being pushed and promoted by the richest person in the world as a positive image. That is a difference between something like what you're doing with Taxi Driver and with this film here. And by the way, you say you want to make a sequel to this. There's no sequel to Taxi Driver, The Further Adventures of, of Travis Bickle, again, like he's a Marvel hero or something. Those are the biggest things. I think your movie's being seen as a positive by the wrong people, where, something like Taxi Driver makes it very clear right off the bat, do not cheer for this film. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think as a filmmaker, I'm not responsible for who likes a movie or hates my movie.
You take some responsibility. You do. You have to take some accountability for your film.
I don't want to. But I don't want to censor myself. Like sitting there and oh, that's too hard, I'm not doing it. It's like, as an independent filmmaker, I think you have to go basically radical. You have to go to the jugular. You have to show things. And I felt. If you watch my movie Attack on Darfur, original refugees from Darfur played themselves how they got raped, how the kids get impaled and stuff like this. And I gave the NATO and the EU shit in public the whole time why they didn't stop the genocide.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I go subject for subject into something and make a movie about it. And I can come from time to time also, life goes on and you come to different conclusions. Or you said right now, I feel right now in Europe, we have basically two massive life-changing situations. That's the endless Ukraine war with the threat of escalating into a third world war. That's crazy that this also 4 years now keeps going. That's for me a major issue. And the second is too much also illegal, uncontrolled migration from like real Islamistic countries.
Okay,
where
you mentioned that already.
Islamistic people coming in.
I just want to get some in because I don't know how much time I have left, but I wanted to also address you because I never got to do that. Again, and understand, I'm not about censorship either. You make what you want to make. I'm not here to say, how dare you make this? You should not be allowed to make this. You make whatever you want. And you have that right. I have the right to come in and say, this is what I see. And, again, that's the beauty of us having all our own opinions here. But, as far as I'm saying, it's me watching this movie and feeling that this movie's hurtful. In your film, the reason why I think also that it's not I don't think it's a good discussion about immigration because it is very one-sided, your presentation here. The movie's very one-sided because it goes out of its way, as I say, to villainize people of color. Every black, brown, and Islamic person in this movie is bad. There is no good black, brown, Islamic character to counter that image. Again, that's what you want to, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. This is your story. You write the way you want to. But, every victim in the movie is white. That's what makes this movie propaganda. People who want to see this and have their beliefs again, be validated. They want to have their racism validated. They're going to see this movie and that's what they're going to think. And whether you like it or not, you're accountable for that, and I think people are going to get the wrong message from it.
I know, but the photo you just showed, there are 3 white people and 1 black person. And 2 of the white people are also criminals, right? So, okay, so maybe they're white. It's a mixed group, right?
I thought that they were Islamic people right there, I
don't think they're Islamic at all. They're just bullies. And you have a lot of, you go on YouTube or whatever, you have a lot of this school bullying going on from like little gangs in schools and stuff like this. And that's the reason also I could cast it also 3 black guys, but I didn't, right? So, because I felt like that's not really
But they still
connected.
know that doesn't still, disregard the fact that every black person and every Islamic person in the movie is bad. That at the end of the movie, your character is killing them in droves. Again, there's no counter to that image there.
I see it this way. There was not one movie like this, and there will be no one movie like this. I don't think that now Hollywood thinks, oh, that was a big success. Now we're making racist, brutal movies. I don't think that this is now a trend created for movies like this. I don't think so. I think that the system in Hollywood keeps continuing making their movies. And so I felt for like also kind of film historical reasons, you have to sometimes do something where you shock everybody, where you say, look, all of this can happen, but it shouldn't happen, So, and that's the thing. I feel like, if there would be more Citizen Vigilantes out there, I would not do this. I would never did the movie if there would be like 10 similar movies. I did the movie because nobody was doing a movie like this. Nobody. And I felt, okay, if nobody's doing it, then I do it,
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's fine. But again, the difference between some of the things you've done and what you're doing right now is that it's being pushed by the richest person in the world who is pushing it, in a positive way. And that's a lot of influence. And I would even say the way your movie's being pushed, there's a double standard for somebody like me. The way Elon Musk is pushing this movie, you're getting a push because you're a white man on the side of this guy's beliefs. This Elon Musk, his racist beliefs. In your movie, your character kills cops. And it's almost seen like the cops are the bad guys for the people who see this movie positively and agree with this character. They see the cops as the bad guys because they're in the way of true justice. And so if they're in the way of true justice and they're not helping this situation, okay, fine, they deserve to die. Imagine, if I was to try to do something like that. Let's just say at a time when over here in America, there was, a lot of black men, unarmed, innocent black men being killed by cops. Imagine if I went out and tried to make a vigilante movie where a black character went out and killed a bunch of cops in the name of justice. Do you think Elon Musk, the richest person in the world, would be promoting my movie? No. No, he wouldn't. In fact, it would be used against me to show how violent black people and crime with black people is. So, I think that you have a certain privilege here with what you're doing that's even showing a double standard against me, So, yeah, listen, I'll say this, man, because I'm getting the message to go ahead and close this. I'll just say this. Listen, and you know what? We've had a very civil discussion. You let me talk, I let you talk. I would just say, if they could just give me a little time. Listen, I think that to a certain extent how hurtful this movie is. I think deep down inside you know this, and because you intentionally seek controversy. Even casting Armie Hammer in the movie is a move of controversy. But getting controversy is a way of getting marketing, and you've done this your whole career pretty much. Like I said, Heart of America. That was about that was inspired by the Columbine shooting. Rampage. You already talked about that. A man in full armor goes off on a killing spree. Assault on Wall Street. This is inspired by the financial crisis. It's a violent take on the financial crisis. You did more Rampage movies where one actually it killed the president right before Trump was elected. And then you made your movie here, Hanau, which is inspired by 10 people were killed and 5 others wounded in a terrorist shooting spree. You've always done these controversial films, and maybe the way you handle those topics, I might have a criticism about that too, about how you handle those. But, and it's your right to make those. But again, as I said, they're being pushed by, this movie is being pushed by Elon Musk. I think that what the imagery and the message that's being put out there is dangerous. And I think that you are a person who likes to be, you get people have called you, and I'm not saying this, people have called you like the worst filmmaker in the world. And, they criticize your movies, almost every one of them, the critics have. So I think you've taken on this image of being, you like being hated now. It's
so maybe
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, maybe I should do next the Hallmark Christmas movie.
No, don't take it to that extreme now. Come on now. That's not what I'm saying. I think that you have a right to make whatever you want to, and I think that actually, again, you have a passion for filmmaking. No matter what people say about your films out there, you make what you want to make, and that's to be admired. But at a certain point. At what point does it get to where it is causing harm for certain people out there? I just think that that's something to think about. I think that you have an opportunity
because we have to finish. But I want that you watch my Darfur movie, and then we do another talk in a few weeks and talk about that movie.
You want to do that? I'll be more than happy to do that. I will watch that, and if we can schedule something and have another discussion to follow up with this, I'd love to do that. I mean, I think this is a fascinating conversation, and I've enjoyed listening to you.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well,
thanks so much.
Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, would you look at that? You made it to the end of the video. That means you really like us. So just go ahead and press that like button and subscribe while you're at it. And check out our other channels, our social media like Instagram, TikTok, and our Patreon, where we have new stuff coming up all the time. And we'll see you on the next video.